Chair Zelli.
I'm here. We have a quorum. And now I will assume there's no objection unless I hear one. And we will approve the agenda. I will consider it approved. And now I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of September 23rd, 2020.
So moved. Lindstrom.
Wolf seconds.
Thank you, Councilmember Lindstrom and Johnson. Is that right? Any comments? If not, Liz, please call the roll.
Barber.
Aye.
Chambliss.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Fredson.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Sterner. Vento.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Zurin.
Aye.
And Chair Zelli.
Aye. The minutes are approved. We're on to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
Cummings moves approval.
Vento seconds. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that's right. Thank you, Councilmember Cummings, and second by Vento. Any discussion? Hearing none. Liz? Call for the roll.
Barber. Barber.
Aye.
Chambliss. Chambliss. Cummings.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Fredson.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Sterner. Vento.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Zurin.
Aye.
Chair Zelli.
Aye. The consent agenda is a. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Councilmember Chambliss in the message said she's having video issues and says aye.
Okay. And we have approved the consent agenda. Now I'm on to standing committees. And for the first item in the community development, I'd call on Councilmember Lilligren.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Community Development brings 3 items for consideration tonight. The first is business item 2020-238. It is to authorize the 2040 comprehensive plan for May Township in northeastern Washington County on the St. Croix River. May Township is designated as diversified rural in Thrive MSP 2040 and expected to grow by 400 households and 60 jobs through the year 2040. The township is planning to retain their rural development pattern at very low densities. Council staff found that the 2040 plan conforms to regional systems plans, is consistent with council policies, and is compatible with the plans of adjacent and affected jurisdictions. Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council adopt the attached advisory comments and review record and take the following actions. Authorize May Township to place its 2040 comprehensive plan into effect and advise the city to, when available, provide the council the date that the Rice Creek Watershed District approve the local water management plan, the LWMP, the date the township adopted the final LWMP, and a copy of the final LWMP if it differs from the version contained in the township's November 27th, 29 plan submission, and to implement the advisory comments in the review record for forecast, land use, and water supply.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second by Gonzalez.
Thank you, Francisco. Any discussion? All right, Liz, call the roll.
Councilmember Barber.
Aye.
Chambliss.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Fredson.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Sterner. Bento.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Zurin.
Aye.
Chair Zelli.
Aye. That motion passed. And I believe since Councilmember Lilligren has a conflict, we're going to call on Councilmember Vento to read a report for business item 2020-259, if she is willing.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. Mr. Chair, council members, business item 2020-259 is to award $4,500,000 in Livable Communities Demonstration Account Transit-Oriented Development Grant Funds to support 4 development projects in 3 cities. Upon completion, the projects are expected to result in over 332 new housing units, 269 of which are affordable, an annual tax base increase of over $474,000, and over $88 million of leveraged private investment. Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council, 1, award 4 Livable Communities Demonstration Account Transit-Oriented Development Grants, as shown in Table 1, totaling $4,500,000, and 2, authorize its Community Development Division Director to execute the grant agreements on behalf of the Council.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Fredson, second.
Thank you, Councilmember Fredson. Any discussion? All right, Liz, please call the roll.
Barber.
Aye.
Chambliss.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Fredson.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Johnson. Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Abstain.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Sterner. Bento.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Zurin.
Aye.
Chair Zelli.
Aye. That motion carried. Back to you, Councilmember Lilligren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and council members. Our third and final business item from Community Development Committee is item 2020-257. It's to authorize an amendment to the Forest Lake 2040 Comprehensive Plan. The city submitted the proposed Minnesota Lakes Storage Facility Comprehensive Plan Amendment for review and authorization. It proposes to re-guide 15 acres of land from high-density residential to highway commercial. The proposed amendment is to accommodate a 324-unit self-storage facility on a site in the western edge of the city. This proposed amendment reduces the amount of land available to support the city's share of the region's 2021-2030 affordable housing needs of 648 units. Council staff found that the 2040 plan conforms to regional systems plans, is inconsistent with council policies, in particular the council's housing policy, and is compatible with the plans of adjacent and affected jurisdictions. Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council adopt the attached advisory comments and review record and take the following actions. First, authorize the City of Forest Lake to place its comprehensive plan amendment into effect. Two, find that the amendment does not change the city's forecasts. Three, find that the amendment renders the city's comprehensive plan inconsistent with the council's housing policy, and that the city is therefore ineligible to participate in Livable Communities Act programs. And four, advise the city that to be consistent with council housing policy, the city needs to increase the inventory of land guided to support the development of low and moderate income housing for the 2021-2030 decade by at least 225 units by guiding enough residential acres with sufficient minimum densities, and also to implement the advisory comments in the review record for land use, water supply, and natural resources.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second by Gonzalez.
Thank you, Councilmember Gonzalez. Any comments or questions on this interesting motion? Hearing none. Liz, please call the roll.
Barber. Barber.
Aye.
Chambliss.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Fredson.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Sterner. Bento.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Zurin.
Aye.
Chair Zelli.
Aye. That motion carried. Now on to the Environment Committee, which has reports on the consent agenda, as does the Management Committee. But we'll hear from the Transportation Committee, and I believe Councilmember Barber is on the phone with a shaky connection, but
Actually,
Councilmember Chambliss is back.
yes.
Good video.
Yes, I will, as Vice Chair, read the business item 2020-251.
Okay.
You don't mind, Chair?
Yes, please.
The proposed action from the Chair and Council members for business item number 2020-251 is regarding the authorization of Regional Administrator to reject all bids for the D-Line System-Wide Communication Conduit Construction Project, contract number 20P156. In summary, the proposed council action would allow for the rejection of the two bids received on September 15th, 2020 for the D-Line System-Wide Communication Conduit Project in the amounts of $1,242,485 and $3,573,056. Also, in summary, procurement determined the lowest bid to be non-responsive, and the second bidder is more than 100% above the independent cost estimate. Procurement determined the lowest bid to be non-responsive, and the second bidder is more than 100% above the independent cost estimate. To avoid adverse project budget and schedule impacts, the project will either be rebid later in the D-Line project schedule or integrated into the major D-Line construction contract. Metro Transit does not anticipate changes to future expectations for utilization of DBE firms as a result of this bidding process. Therefore, Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to reject all bids received for the D-Line System-Wide Communication Conduit Construction Project, contract number 20P156.
Okay, is there a second?
Second by Barber.
Thank you, Councilmember Barber. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none. Liz, please call the roll.
Barber,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
and Councilmember Sterner texted me and his vote is yes. Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zurin,
Aye.
and Chair Zelli.
Aye, that motion carried. So now we're on to other business. Our final item is the public comment budget update and the 2021, really the 5-year 20 to 26 capital program presented by council staff. So Marie, are you, and I might advise everybody to mute their phone.
Yep, thank you.
Oh, okay, thanks, Philip. Marie, are you here?
I am,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Good.
As that presentation comes up, I just want to welcome everybody. And my name is Marie Henderson. I am the acting CFO.
Is this management? What is
and
this one?
we are here to present the 2021-2026 capital program. I am getting a little bit of feedback, but hopefully we can have people mute. Today we have
somebody to mute here because we are getting somebody talking. Maybe it's better now. Sorry, Marie. Go ahead.
Thank you. I here today to talk about a couple items. First of all, public comment update that I'd like to give a very brief update on the operating budget. So if we can just go to the next slide. As we were here in August, we talked a little bit about in the operating budget presentation that these budgets for 2021 continue to and will continue to evolve during the pandemic. So we did want to highlight for you today a few items that are going to be in the public comment draft that you will see as a business item at the next council meeting on October 28th. So just to note, 5 major items that have been updated since last you've seen the operating budget. First of all, the MVEST money revenue. MB in August at the end of session gave us an estimate for the state fiscal year of 2022. This is a more optimistic look for motor vehicle sales tax, and it adds $32.3 million to the council, which will be added to Transit Link, fixed route, planning, bus operations, suburban transit providers, and MVEPS reserve. We also, in the operating budget, reduce service for North Star. This will reduce revenues by $9.7 million, and it will also reduce expenses of $8.2 million. There's also reduction for light rail of $5.8 million in expenses and increasing revenue of $460,000. This is to align with local partners, the Federal CARES Act, and some safety initiatives. The community development budget has also been adjusted for the $400,000. This is due to a parks visitor study that was not able to be completed this year, but we do plan on completing that in 2021. We also adjusted the HRA operating budget of $300,000 as the Federal CARES Act money came in before that presentation. So with that, just a quick overview. We will be sending out the budget books before the presentation, so you'll have a review period time, and we will go through and on August 28th that business item. So if we can go to the next slide. And we are here now to present the 6-year, the 2021 to 2026 capital program public comment. Like I said, we'll be back on October 28th to adopt the unified budget public comment draft. And this will include then the operating budget and the capital program that we're going to go through tonight. I do want to give you 3 very important definitions as we go through the capital program. First of all, you'll hear ACP, which is our authorized capital program. And these are projects that were funded, where the funding has been secured, and you as the council have given that final approval. Second definition is capital budget. And these are the dollar amounts that are in the ACP that are expected to be spent in the given year. And then we have CIP, which is our capital improvement plan. And that's our 6-year plan for projects where funding sources have been identified but not yet secured. And the council has not given the final approval. The council, part of this calendar is the same as prior years, and you'll give the final adoption on December 9th as part of our unified budget. Presentation here tonight is high level, and the divisions will also be giving some of their capital program initiatives. So if we can go to the next slide. The total capital program for 2021 through 2026 is $8.5 billion. It's an increase from last year of about 5%. Last year it was $1.5 billion. This slide breaks down that budget overall. First of all, by uses in the department. You'll see that 78% is devoted to transit and transit ways. We'll also then look at, in the middle, that pie chart shows us it's by category, what we're using for existing assets, what we're using for expanding, and what we're using for improving assets. And the last pie chart is our sources, where the funding is being used. Sources are funded, our federal is our largest share, followed by local share and regional share, and our local share is $2.4 billion. The largest share this year is being on expansion projects, in particularly the Blue Line expansion. Next slide, please. The total I'm sorry, needed to flip my own notes. The total is for funding by status. So again, this is feeding into the 3 definitions that I already gave you. So if we look at authorized and unspent, that's the $1.2 million, and the authorized and already spent is 2.6. So together that's 3.9 billion. And like I said, 2.6 has already been spent. The plan piece of that is the big piece that, again, we have funding sources, we have not secured them, and we have not authorized those through the council yet. So one more slide to show you the future planning piece that's authorized and planned, again, breaking that down. And where we are authorized that 1.3 billion by department, and the next slides will go through each department and where they plan on spending that is authorized, and also then what is their 6-year plan to include that 4.6 billion. So just a really quick overview, and now I'm going to turn it over to the divisions to talk about their authorized and planned capital program. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. My name is Janine Clancy, council members and chair, and I'm here to present the Environmental Services Capital Program. As many of you know, Environmental Services owns 9 wastewater treatment plants and 640 miles of interceptors, 60 pumping stations, and 200 meter stations located throughout the metropolitan area. The regional wastewater system serves over 2.6 million people, which is about half of the state's population, and our assets are valued at $7 billion. The projects in our program are consistent with the objectives that Marie outlined. They're driven by the objectives of asset preservation, capacity needs, or improving the quality of our work, such as responding to more stringent regulations, increasing system reliability, or conserving or generating energy. Could you go to the next slide, please? So our interceptor projects are shown here by the uses. By the interceptor projects are 49%, and our treatment plants are 51%. If you look at our uses by category, we have 70% of asset preservation, 16% of expansion, and 14% of improvement. And then our sources are listed there. The predominant sources are funded through either our general obligation bonds, and then 8% is PAYGO, and 1% is from state funding sources. Next slide, please. Our future spending projects, we look at our treatment plants are 60% in our treatment plants, and our interceptor projects are 40%. And our plan, that's in our authorized program of $724 million, where our planned projects are $448 million. Again, our treatment plants are 46%, and our interceptor projects are 54%. Next slide, please. So by objectives, again, we are preserving our assets, meeting capacity needs, or improving quality. And once again, our objectives are listed out there on that slide that I just noted. Next slide, please. Here is our cash flow for our projects, and as you can see, in previous years, if you look at an overall average, our spending has been about $110 million. And this year we anticipate that we will spend about $112 million, which I'm very pleased given all of the challenges with that COVID has presented to us, not only in going through extra precautions with our procurement process, but the precautions that have needed to be taken during the construction of the projects. In the next several years, you see that the cash flow estimates are between $185 million and $200 million, and that reflects the large projects in our portfolio, solids management expansion at the Metro plant, the Hastings plant, a new lift station in Fridley, which we call L32, and the Crow River plant and interceptor system to serve that facility. Next slide, please. And consistent with the definitions that Marie has provided with you, in summary, the final proposed 2021 through 2026 capital program for the Environmental Services Division is $1,480 million, of which $1,032 million is the authorized capital program, and $448 million is the capital improvement program. The proposed 2021 capital budget for environmental services is $185 million. Next slide, please. And again, just to go over our funding sources, environmental services does get funding sources of about $50 million from the Public Facilities Authority. And this funding source is dependent on the legislature passing a bonding bill. We anticipate about a $50 million loan in 2021. And our interest rate is 1.5%, which is one of the benefits of this program. The council general obligation bonds is funding for the majority of the program. And we estimate in 2021, depending on the outcome of the bonding bill, between a $50 to $100 million bond. And then the remaining is paid for by funds dedicated through for capital expenses with current revenue, which we refer to as pay-as-you-go. Next slide, please. So now I just wanted to give you 3 examples of our project. The first one is our new lift station L32A. The capital program in total includes about 250 projects that all are in the planning, design, construction, or commissioning phase. So this project, which will be located in Fridley, Environmental Services owns an existing lift station on the west side of the river in Brooklyn Park, and the facility in Brooklyn Park is 50 years old. It has reached its useful life and flows are nearing the capacity of the lift station. The wet well has significant deterioration issues due to poor ventilation, and the mechanical, electrical, and control systems are all due for replacement. The council acquired a property for a new lift station in Fridley in 2014. At a concept level, the estimated construction cost for the new lift station is $30 million, and the project is scheduled to begin construction in 2023 with completion in 2025. Next slide, please. Another project is located at our Metro plant. The Metro Solids Improvement Program provides additional incineration capacity needed to preserve wastewater treatment plant infrastructure and to serve regional population growth. We anticipate 500,000 new residents are expected in the Metro plant service area by 2050. 3 existing fluid bed incinerators, which generally run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, treat wastewater solids at the Metro plant, and these facilities are nearing 25 years old and need more extensive renewal work. A 4th incinerator will be constructed at the Metro plant so that we have capacity to take each of the existing incinerators down for a period of a year, one at a time, so that we can perform the major renewal projects that are needed. The 4th incinerator will be constructed 2021 through 2024, and the estimated construction cost is $150 million. Next slide, please. And finally, in the next 10 years, we plan to construct 2 new wastewater treatment plants for environmental services. The first one that will be constructed will be in Hastings, that will relocate service from downtown Hastings to council property located 2 miles southeast of the existing plant. The Hastings wastewater treatment plant currently serves 23,000 residents in Hastings. The new plant, which is included in the 2040 Water Resources Policy Plan, will provide capacity for long-term service to the townships of Marchand, Vermilion, and Nininger. The proposed capital program schedule anticipates construction in 2023 through 2025, and this will allow us to balance cash flow needs and rate impacts with our other major capital projects in the program. The last major expansion and renewal of the existing Hastings plant was completed in 1985. Based on a recent condition assessment, the existing plant will need some modest renewal to ensure reliable service through construction of the new facilities. Thank you for the opportunity to present this evening.
Are there any questions for Janine at this point? I have one. Janine, will you talk about expansion, which I totally understand, and then preservation and improvement? While you're preserving, aren't you improving? I mean, what's the distinction? And it sounds like you've got a really expansive and really interesting program over the next 5 years. But can you kind of describe what the improvement is versus kind of replacing an outdated system?
Sure. Council members, Chair Zelli, it varies on every single project, as you can imagine, but a really good example is the incineration facilities at the Metro plant. There is a situation where we're not only providing additional capacity for growth, but we are also improving our abilities to generate electricity at that facility and to recover energy at that facility. That would be one example. Another example would be that in the Fridley lift station, we know that we have odor issues that impact the community around the existing Brooklyn Park facility. So while we're replacing that facility, we will improve our odor control facilities at the at both Fridley and Brooklyn Park to improve the environment around our existing facilities, which, as you know, is one of our important aspects of our customer level of service, is to be a good neighbor with our facilities. Thank you.
It sounds a little like we do both expansion, improvement, and preservation, all three in one project. Depending on, how you look at it.
Many times we do, yes.
Great. Anybody else have any questions on environmental services? All right.
This is Councilmember Chambliss, Chair.
Go ahead, Council Member.
Yeah, I'm just wanted to say that I'm really happy about the proposed changes between Fridley and Brooklyn Park for the treatment and mitigation of some of the odor that had been emitted, and there's some opportunities for Fridley as well. So that's great that we can do this. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilmember Lindstrom.
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to pipe up and say, as Janine mentioned, there's something like 250 projects in the works or being implemented. And so naturally it spans all across the metro area. So if you really want to learn what's happening in your region, you can go to the Environment Committee's presentation from just yesterday, and it's all online, and see what's happening in your district.
Thank you. Really impressive.
Thank you.
All right, Maria, was it back to you or on to another division?
Chair, committee members, this is Ed Petrie, Metro Transit. We can move on to the transportation portion.
Great.
Once again, I'm Ed Petrie, Director of Finance, Metro Transit. I'm going to be joined this evening by Heather Augustin-Heebner from Metropolitan Transportation Services. We're going to tag team, and I will kick it off. So next slide.
You are a popular person.
So first of all, with the capital program for the transportation division, our entire capital program.
440.
There's feedback coming in. Okay. The overall transit capital program is approximately $6.7 billion, which includes both the authorized and future planned projects, as Marie described earlier this evening. As you notice on the uses by department, it is very predominated by transitways. About 70% of our uses is planned to be transitways, which includes both the Metro Blue and the Green Line extensions, but it also includes categories like our BRT lines, like the Gold Line, and the ABRT lines, like the D, B, and E, etc. Our next largest use by department is fleet, as you would anticipate, which would be the replacement of all of our vehicles, which would include both the large buses for Metro Transit, contracted services buses, regional provider buses, and also the fleet for Metro Mobility. You can see facilities is approximately $445 million. And that would include both public facilities, which would include like shelters, platforms, those types of items, and our support facilities, for example, like the new Minneapolis Bus Garage. Other technology or other items, which is $317 million, would include mainly technology type projects, which would include both our fare collection equipment, some new technology that we're purchasing, and also fare collection system upgrades. Under the uses, you can see our largest portion is expansion, 76%, or just over $5 billion, and we have preservation at about $1.6 billion. Again, the expansion is really predominated by our transitway lines, the blue and the green line extension. On the sources side, you can see the largest revenue source, again, would be the federal source, $3.4 billion, which would be predominated there by the full funding grant agreements, the full funding grant agreement for the current Green Line extension and the planned full funding grant agreement for the Metro Blue Line extension. The federal dollars would also include our operational sites or our operational units. We do generate federal dollars on an annualized basis. On an annualized basis, we file what's called a 5307, an NTD cost report with the National Transit Database Division of the FTA. This is a cost report that is filed by all transit agencies across the United States. It reports their hours of service, miles of service, passengers, expenses, revenues. It is that basis in that the federal government then uses to distribute 5307 formula funds across to all agencies, of which the council receives those funds, and also the suburban transport providers also receives 5307 funding. Generally, we use those funds to generally purchase buses. We also receive 5339 bus and bus facilities capital funds and 5337 federal state of good repair funds for both bus and rail. The federal bucket would also include CMAQ funds, which is regional solicitation funds we get through the TAB process, and those are mainly for purchasing of buses and some light construction activities. At the next largest piece is the local piece, which is 36%, just under $2.4 billion, $2.39 billion. This is mainly the local money for the respective transitways and the blue line, the green line extensions. The next largest piece would be the regional bucket, which is $720 million or 11%. You may know this as, we normally call it Regional Transit Capital, which is RTC. This is from legislative authority that we get from the legislature, which allows the council then to bond, and then we use those RTC funds to match our federal dollars. Generally, when we get the federal funds in, when we do a federal grant, it is generally an 80-20 split federal grant. 80% federal, then you need a local match, which we will generally use RTC for our local match, for example, 20% match when we purchase buses. And then we have a few $1 million of other funds and for some state money. Next slide. So this brings us now into our currently authorized plan, our future spending about $4.5 billion. It's made up of two things. On the right-hand side, which Maria talked about, which is our planned, which is our CIP, our capital improvement program. These are projects that we feel are very good projects, but of which we're forecasting money for, but we do not have the money in place today. So we're pushing our forecasts out based upon historical trends, historical receipts for federal dollars, and anticipating what we're going to receive in the future. When we do get those funds available, you will then notice us coming in on a quarterly basis, moving items from the CIP and into the capital budget. So we will come in on a quarterly basis and move it from the planned over to the authorized. Over on the authorized side, you can see we currently have authorized in our ACP about $489 million that will spend out in the next year or two. So on the plan side, let's focus on that. On the plan side, it is $4 billion, again, predominated by the transitways, $2.9 billion of transitways, which is mainly the blue and the green line, but also, as I said, it would include the BRT and the ABRT lines. The next largest source will be our fleet, which is $792 million, which would be the replacement of all of our bus fleet and the Metro Mobility fleet. We do have some challenges with the Metro Mobility fleet that in a couple slides, Heather will talk about that on Metro Mobility. On facilities, it is $92 million, which includes our passenger and customer facilities, and also the completion of the new Minneapolis Bus Garage. And then the other costs, which are in at $166 million, includes mainly all of our systems, computerization, fare collection upgrades, and other capital equipment. Next slide. Some of the items that we just want to point out that we have some of the adjustments and modifications that we do have within our capital program. First of all is our first commitment, major commitment with our program is to maintain our assets in a state of good repair. If you look in the lower right-hand corner, the Transit Asset Management Plan. This is a plan that we actually filed back in 2018 with the federal government, with the FTA. For all federally funded assets, we committed and we agreed with the FTA to maintain those assets in a state of good repair. So this is a plan that we are following very closely and maintaining those federal assets in a state of good repair. So that is our priority within our capital budget. The next item is the new Minneapolis Bus Garage. As you are aware, we are beginning construction of that just across the way from our current Haywood garage. This will be our 6th garage for Metro Transit, and it is currently under construction. It is planned for bus service sometime later in 2022. One thing I do want to point out is that the new Minneapolis Bus Garage will also be electric bus compatible. The next item is the electric bus program, which leads me into that. We're currently, as you are aware, we currently operate 8 electric buses on the C line. And the 2021 through 2026 program currently only includes a small amount of a few $1 million for additional electric charging stations and infrastructure. Our proposed CIP for the 21 to 26 period does not include any additions to the electric bus program, which would include buses and electric infrastructure. As you are aware, though, we are working on a program agreement right now with Excel, and which we would hope, if we can generate some funds from that, would greatly start our electric bus program. This Excel partnership would provide both electric buses and would also provide charging infrastructure for us. If the Excel proposal is approved, which we hope to get that approval, we would plan to bring an adjustment to both the capital budget and CIP, hopefully sometime early in 2021. Maintaining and repairing existing facilities, as I talked about, we work very closely to maintain all of our assets in a state of good repair. Our fare collection system is another big item that we are looking at very closely. Our current GFI system, which is the fare boxes that are on our buses, our current GFI fare boxes are from a vintage 1993. So they are approximately 27 years old, working very well, but also they're seeing their age. So we do have a 10-year plan that we are working on. As we are replacing buses, we are also replacing our GFI fare boxes at the same time. The nice thing about it is the old GFI fare boxes and the new GFI fare boxes will communicate on the same platform. So we're able to interface the data from both of the vintages of fare boxes and bring it together. The other fare collection system we have, which is our cubic fare collection system, which is our go-to card system. This is currently, it's of a vintage of 2009. So we're very happy about that we have been able to get 11 years off of this current vintage. We're looking at a potential upgrade to that system probably in 2023 or 2024. The next commitment that we have within our plan is meeting the Metro Mobility ridership growth, which Heather will talk about in a few minutes. And the other item is capital program equity priorities. We have many priorities within our budget for equity, which includes meeting the ADA growth, regional standards for bus replacement across the region. We also have programs for enhancing the customer experience, better bus stops, the ADA bus stops, and some improvements to public facilities. And also one of our other big programs within the equity side is the expansion of all of our ABRT lines in areas that would be very positive for equity. Some of the adjustments that we have made that we talked about last year on our buses, on our CIP plan, is that the Metro Transit buses are currently operating at 14 years. One of the things that we also did is we reviewed, because of the impacts of COVID, both on our service and our operations and on our buses, we reviewed all of our timelines, our costs, and our projects to review them with how COVID is impacting our service, and also looking at what our replacement needs need to be for our buses because of COVID. Next slide.
So good afternoon. Again, I'm Heather Augustin-Hebner, and are you able to hear me okay? Okay, I'll be taking over the next handful of slides before handing it back to Ed. So our fleet program is roughly a quarter of our total capital program, and over half of our capital program if you remove the transitway costs. The program, as Ed mentioned before, it includes all of Metro Transit services, all of the Metropolitan Transportation services, and all the Suburban transit provider fleet replacement and expansion costs. Our focus is really to maintain our current system, meet Metro mobility demand, and replace our vehicles based upon established fleet and maintenance plans. COVID-19 has had an impact on ridership, and we are monitoring impacts closely to make sure we're matching our fleet purchases with regional needs. During the span of the CIP, we plan to replace buses, procure buses for the B, D, E, and orange lines, overhaul our rail vehicles, and support transit provider expansion projects awarded through the regional solicitation. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to walk you through all of these numbers other than to highlight that all of the vehicles have different replacement cycles and show up in the CIP a little bit differently. So if you have a larger bus, the bus replacement schedule is going to be about 12 to 14 years. If it's a small bus, it's about 5 or 6 years. So if you see a larger bus, it's only going to show up in the CIP once. Some of the smaller buses are going to potentially showing up, and actually we have a number of those buses showing up twice. So could you go to the next slide, and I can show you a little bit about what this looks like. Oh, next slide, please. There we go. So this slide really shows what happens with kind of the compounding effects of the growth of Metro mobility. So you've heard that from an operational perspective, that Metro mobility is one of our big operating stories. It's no different on the capital side. So the MTS fleet is shown by the blue line, and that continues to grow. It's comprised of MTS regular route, Transit Link, Metro mobility, and Suburban transit provider buses. Over time, our fleet has grown somewhat due to expansion projects from Suburban transit providers, but mostly driven by the Metro mobility ridership growth. So just as kind of a quick snapshot, the Metro mobility fleet has grown 120% from 2004 to 2020. That's from 290 buses to 634, and we have 271 expansion buses programmed from 21 to 26. By 2026, the Metro mobility fleet is projected to be nearly 900 buses. That represents a 210% growth since 2004. We continue to look for ways for managing the Metro mobility growth, because at this pace, we will outpace our ability to fund, from a funding perspective, to replace those buses. We are also continuing to monitor ridership during COVID period to understand the impacts of our fleet growth. The Metro mobility ridership does not always follow regional trends, so it usually picks up faster. So Metro mobility right now, I think the latest number I saw was we're about 50% of where we were pre-COVID, and that's significantly ahead of where a lot of the rest of the regional ridership levels are. Next slide, please. We plan to spend about $214 million on our facilities. Some highlights of current projects include energy enhancements, the Haywood campus expansion, and the new Minneapolis garage. Coming up, we have a number of projects focusing, as Ed talked about earlier, focusing on asset management, sustainability, and equity. These include better bus stops and the ADA bus stop program, customer experience improvements, public facilities capital improvements, and bus stop facilities and enhancements. We've also highlighted one Suburban transit provider project, the Burnsville Bus Garage modernization. One of the exercises with that the asset management plan that Ed referenced earlier is we assessed every facility in the entire region. Of all the bus garages, the Burnsville Bus Garage ranked at the lowest, and basically that means we needed to do some work to modernize it. MBTA was able to secure a federal grant to help with that modernization, and the council is contributing the local match of $700,000. So I just wanted to offer that as an example of one, how the asset management system works, and one of the ways that we do support suburban transit providers. In this capital program, there's north of $120 million programmed for the suburban transit providers. Next slide, please. So our other category is heavy on technology needs. And I'm not going to repeat a lot of this because Ed did a really good introduction before. But really, a lot of what our technology needs are things to make the buses operate and to allow us to provide better customer service. Next slide, please.
The final slide we have here is, as we talked about earlier, is we're very heavily predominated by the transit ways. You can see we have currently authorized, it's about $3.1 billion. We currently have authorized about $221 million that we will spend out, but we have an additional $2.9 billion that's planned. As you can see, as you would assume, that is mainly predominated by the green and the blue line extensions. We do have some partial funding in for some of the BRT and ABRT lines, like the Rush Line, Gold Line, and ABRTs. We do have some repairing of our current systems, both blue and green, all of our interlocking projects. I believe you probably will recall a couple years ago, we did some major repairs in downtown Minneapolis around the warehouse area on some of the light rail interlockings. We do have some of those other projects within the CIP plan. We have some North Star and LRT ADA and safety improvements, and we also have some LRT rail replacement. Next slide.
And the next slide is me, but I guess I'll just ask to pause here to see if anyone has questions on transit before I move forward with community development.
Any questions? Great presentation. Heather and Ed, I mean, Heather, you were talking about fleet replacement. Does the, if the program pans out with Excel and we start purchasing electric buses, is what's in the plan now kind of the baseline, what they would currently cost, and then the Excel funds would pay for the incremental additional costs, both for the buses and for the infrastructure that supports them?
Yeah, Chair, committee members, as said, Peter, I'll take that question. Yeah, what we have currently in the current CIP would be the base costs of the buses, which would be the diesel component. And then Excel, they would come in, then they would then pay for the incremental, going from the electrification or from the diesel up to the electrification, including contributing towards some of the infrastructure costs, the charging stations, and those other items.
So we're in terms of our capital budget, if this comes through, which I hope it will, it doesn't create any more burden to our capital budget. It really just expands the quality of our fleet.
Chair, committee members, that's correct, because that would give us an injection in that would allow us then to move to a number of buses to electrification. Yep.
Well, there's a lot here, and you presented a really great overview. Any other questions that anybody has? Thoughts? Well, thanks, Ed and Heather.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll just continue on with the community development. Next slide, please. So the community development capital program is about $375 million, and it's funded primarily with state funds. And all but about $1 million of this 375 supports the regional park system, and the remaining $1 million is programmed to support council-owned housing. This is the first year that we have had council-owned housing in our capital program, and I'll provide a little bit more background on that a couple slides from now. So on the park side, the council provides a regional match to state dollars, and our contribution represents about 16% of the program revenue. The council does not match direct appropriations, or you might know them as earmarks, and we do not use any of the capital dollars excuse me, ourselves. So on the park side, 100% of those funds go to the regional parks implementing agencies. So of our total CAP program, over 90% of those funds go directly to the 10 parks implementing agencies, and about the next 10% goes to remaining projects that were specifically directed by the legislature. Funds are used to preserve, improve, and expand the park system. What you see in the chart here is a representation of historically how the dollars have played through our system. The projects are really identified by the parks implementing agencies. So these pie pieces do have a tendency to shift based upon how those local governing boards prioritize their projects. Next slide, please. So parks authorized funds are passed through via grant agreements to our park implementing agencies and communities identified by the legislature to receive direct appropriations. I'll walk through those specific grant programs on a future slide. Future spending in our CIP represents planned projects, again, to preserve, improve, and expand the regional park system. Next slide, please. So most of you know this, but the metropolitan area is home to one of the best regional park systems in the entire nation. It's known for its beauty, its size, its variety of features, and particularly in our environment, it is a wonderful place to get some exercise and enjoy the great outdoors in a time of social distancing. In 2019, there were over 63 million visitors. One of the things that is emphasized in the entire project life cycle of capital projects within our program is equity. And the equity, it really starts at that program policy level with expectations in Thrive MSP 2040 and the 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan. It continues with equity assessments in the master planning and project development phase. And we are now wrapping up and actually in the middle of a pilot program for the Regional Park System Equity Grant Program. Next slide, please. So our capital program has a few major assumptions and commitments, and that's basically that the council will continue to match state of Minnesota appropriations as directed either by statute or council policy, and we continue to financially support the Regional Parks Equity Grant Program. Our adjustments in this CIP are primarily adding just 2026. We have programmed anticipated state revenues and council matches. Next slide, please. So as I said earlier, 100% of Parks capital funds are passed through to the following programs on this slide. The council administers regional parks grant programs that provide funds to expand, improve, and maintain our park system. As you can see on the graphic, 3 of our 4 grant programs are sourced through state funds, several of which are distributed by formula. And you'll also see that the council provides a match in 3 of 4 of these programs and then fully funds the equity grant program. Again, the funds are passed through by a grant agreement. And just to give you a flavor, we currently have over 200 active grants valued at about $150 million. And we anticipate awarding about another $224 million in grant funds through the life of this CIP. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, this is the first time that we've programmed council-owned housing in our capital program. Terry Smith, the Metro HRA director, provided a full presentation of the Family Affordable Housing Program at the September 3rd, 2019 CDC meeting. So I'm just going to provide a really brief snapshot, but if you're interested in learning more about how the council came to own some housing units, that would be a great one to watch. So at the highest level, we have statutory authority to develop housing units, and the council acted in 1999 to establish the Family Affordable Housing Program. The council purchased 150 housing units, and we still operate those same units today. Since program inception, our housing units have been managed by a property management company and we have funded routine maintenance, and the homes are generally in good condition. Our homes are getting older, and we've been moving towards developing a more formal long-range asset management approach. We conducted a physical needs assessment in 2019 that was planned to be refined in 2020 by our property management company. Due to COVID, that's not possible, so we've delayed that until social distancing is not needed. We have moved ahead with creating a financial structure to assist with that long-term reporting and long-term planning efforts. Seed funding that was provided by you through a 2020 strategic initiative has been moved into the authorized capital program through the last budget amendment. So this is a real-life example of how our capital plans are living, breathing documents. So what I was planning to come and talk to you about up until, when this presentation was developed was that we have $500,000 in the ACP. to do some asset management work, and about another $600,000 planned for future asset management work. Well, in the last week or so, there was an opportunity that was presented to us that we talked to the management committee about today, and that is about 9 of the 150 homes that we own are twin homes, and in 7 of those we only own one of the 2 sides. And a property owner reached out to us relatively unexpectedly and asked if we wanted to purchase the other half of that twin home. So what will be coming back to you, to the CDC this next Monday, and then management and council the following week, to talk a little bit about potentially purchasing that other twin home and asking for a budget amendment related to that. So I'm sorry I didn't have specific slides for you today on that, but I just wanted to give you a little preview of what is likely to come at your next council meeting. And with that, I will end and hand it back for any questions.
Thank you, Heather.
Mr. Chair and council members, that is our 2021 capital program. And like Heather said, we are going to be back next council meeting with a business item for the approval of the 2021 preliminary unified budget. And with that, thank you for your time and any questions for the team.
Questions?
Chair, this is Councilmember Atlas Ingebretson.
Please go ahead. Hi, Linnea.
Hi. Just curious if the last piece we just heard about with the twin homes, it seems to me if there are 7 homes that we own only half of, that as we do move forward into having a full schedule for maintenance and care, that it might be fortuitous to see if we can get the others of those. I would assume it would just be maybe easier, and I don't know what it would be like to do maintenance on half of a house and the complexity that might come, as well as the opportunity to gaining more housing stock that we can leverage for much needed affordable housing.
Any thoughts on that? I don't know if. Councilmember Johnson, you have a thought.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilmember Alice Ingebretson, we had this item up in management just before our council meeting today, and I raised that very point. We talked about that. So, you're right in sync with some of the things we were talking about. And as this moves forward, I am very sure that will be the thought process that staff is developing, because it just makes so much sense. So thanks for raising it. Really appreciate that.
Mr. Chair?
Presents an opportunity. Go ahead, Councilmember Lilligren.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. To Councilmember Alice Ingebrigtsen's point, that's exactly right, and we'll be seeing this in Community Development Committee as well. And my thanks to Ms. Terry Smith for sort of starting to frame up. This raises other questions for us. Our housing inventory was acquired through funds designated through the Holman Decree, and we really haven't bought or sold, added or subtracted to that inventory. And so Ms. Smith prompted a discussion in Management Committee, which I'm sure will continue through this budget season and into next year, about what the council's approach is going to be to our inventory, to buying, selling property, and then this more very interesting sort of possibility of being more active in the affordable housing real estate market.
Great questions. And even though we backed into it, we are managing a portfolio of assets that we need to be thoughtful about how to advance our goals. Yeah, great. Any other questions or thoughts on the capital budget or 5-year plans? Robert, you might be muted. I don't know if you're talking to us.
I am talking. Thank you.
Good. Well,
Sorry about that. But I do want to lift up the work of the finance team, housing staff, Ms. Agnes-Heber and Ms. Smith, about shifting our housing inventory into the capital budget. And it was kind of one of those head scratcher moments for me in government about why don't we do this already? And I think this is just a much more planful and responsible way to be managing that inventory. So my thanks to the staff that brought that forward.
Right. Opens it up. Thank you. Well, I certainly want to thank you, Marie, and everybody who presented. It's pretty extensive, and I know we're only seeing the very treetops of a very detailed plan and quite a robust program. But we look forward to voting on a unified budget before you know it, and I think this is helpful for us in terms of background. One more chance if you have any thoughts or questions. Then we're really reaching toward the end of our meeting. Just a quick on reports. I think, you know, a couple of meetings ago, I offered that we would have some bike tours and bike and walking tours of Southwest Light Rail. I really want to thank Sam O'Connell and Jim Alexander for offering some dates. So I know an email went out to everybody. So, and I know a few people have signed up. I've signed up. So take a look. And before it snows, which could be this weekend, but you know, I mean, hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll get a chance to bundle up, and walk around, and see an amazing project. And when you think about some of those capital improvements, and we have a lot of transitway investments coming pretty quickly over the next few years, and this is the mother of all capital projects. The Southwest Light Rail is the largest one that has ever been done in Minnesota, and there's a lot to see right now. So I encourage anybody to get a chance, and plus we get a chance to do a little social distancing conversation with each other if we get a chance. Does anybody else have any reports or things that they would like to share? I'm scanning my screen. How about Mary? Anything?
Mr. Chair, just echoing your thanks to our finance department's difficult budget to put together this year.
Your microphone is a little in and out. It might be up near your.
Sorry about. There we go. Yep.
Sorry.
Just again, a thanks to our finance department. A tough budget to put together this year, and you know, from a timing perspective as well as just so many moving parts, and so I think they've done a great job. And then just a note that our discussion on goals was very timely last week, as the chair heard from the governor's office that they're getting back to their strategic planning and wanting updates to our plan. And so timely conversation. I didn't have any inside information that was coming, but it was good that we got on the agenda. So that's it for me.
Great. Thanks, Mary. Ann?
No report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay. And just to follow up what Mary said, I think the strategic plan that we organized and into our 4 major goals, and very thoughtful, and just coincidentally aligns perfectly with with Governor Walz's One Minnesota. So I think the governor's staff and the governor is realizing, despite the pandemic and all the issues that we've been facing this past year, we need to get that strategy out. So I suspect you'll be hearing more about how that would be rolled out over the next month, and we're part of that. So more on that when we know more. All right, thanks everybody, and we will see you very soon in some meeting or bike ride soon. Have fun, and I would say enjoy the day, but it's kind of blustery, so stay inside. See you soon. Thanks. This meeting's adjourned. Bye-bye.